This episode is sponsored by Warner Brothers. Hello, and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective, and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson, and this is episode 92, 10 Things I Learned the Hard Way. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Albert Einstein, unquote. In the last episode, I revisited the 12-week year, a system for getting things done without annualized thinking and planning, but with a more focused 12-week mindset that creates greater drive, basically, by pulling your goals from what seems very, very far away to bring them much, much closer. And if you've not heard it yet, then please go back and indulge yourself in a better way to get things done and achieve those goals. 12-week years are not tied down to New Year's resolutions, etc., but can begin at any time that you choose. And if you're wondering why my voice is a little bit deeper than usual, it's because I've got a bit of a cold, so please bear with me as I struggle through this show. But after that New Year special, I went almost immediately into a new 12-week year myself, and I came off social media and I stopped producing episodes of the show while I focused on and concentrated on 3 of my long-term goals. And the exercise, as it has been in the past, was incredibly successful, although it was laterally interrupted by a very involved indie feature film that I got pulled into called Mercy Falls. And as many of you know, I work as a fight director and I oversee the fight choreography and safe delivery of fights and action sequences in film and TV and occasionally on theatre. I used to do theatre all the time, but for whatever reason, I don't even get asked anymore, but them's the breaks. Anyway, this film was put together by a fellow filmmaker of mine, Ryan Hendrick, and his team of hard-working cast and crew, and as these low-budget productions almost always are, required a little bit more time and energy than I had anticipated. But still, I made massive advancements on my goals before that stage, and I'm actually taking on a shorter kind of 4-week year, I'll call it, starting today as I release this, to tie up a few loose ends and squeeze a bunch of essential administration stuff I have to do into that same period. I'll also be recording 9 new episodes to complete season 7 of this podcast during that time, but more about that later. The burned hand teaches best. After that, advice about fire goes to the heart. J.R.R. Tolkien. I've made a lot of mistakes in my time, sometimes more than one, sometimes more than that, to be honest, but I'll try not to dwell on it. But I thought I'd just take a little bit of time today to share a few of them here with you, and I'd like to think that you'll be able to learn from my errors too. That's what I do in this podcast anyway. I'm choosing topics which I've burned my fingers on, but this is just 10 things that have come up along the way that I thought I'd chuck out as an episode. And there's a strange thing about when I release an episode that's like 10 reasons why or 5 things that are wrong with or whatever, or even I've done like 10 awesome apps to download for your phone or whatever. For whatever reason, if I put a number into the title of one of these episodes, more people tend to listen to it. Don't know why. I think it's maybe just people are interested to know what it is. They don't like to get left out. But anyway, this is another one of those numbered ones, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. So this is one of those episodes which I call off the cuff. I've got some notes. I've got 10 points written down on a Word document in front of me, and I'm going to go through them, and hopefully you'll find something of interest in here. The first one of these things I've written down is always give someone a second chance, but never a third. And that's something I learned while I was directing my first feature, Faster Man. So I'll call it a first feature, by the way, as I suspect somewhere down the line I may shoot another one if I can get the right idea together and if I can make it small enough to shoot with a small team and all that. But like every time I end up on someone else's film, another low budget like the one Ryan's working on at the moment, I remember all the trouble it was to make one in the first place. People don't get this, how hard it is actually to make a film. You really don't have any idea. It's amazing how many people crawl out of the woodwork to complain about how you've made the film and the choices you've made, but like just getting the film completed in the first instance is deserves an award on its own. That's just not the point I'm making, by the way. I'm just saying that one day I'll make another feature film. But my first point, to pull it back on track is always give someone a second chance, but never a third. And I learned that lesson the hard way on Fast Romance, because I had someone that was involved in the production that was great initially. They were really excellent. And as it went on, it became clear that they had a skill shortage along the way. And one skill they did have was the skill of annoying people and winding people up, and they were constantly interfering, which to some degree they had a right to do. But on a low budget, you need to kind of coax people along and manage people in a different way than if you were, paying decent wages. If you're paying crap wages, you need to offer these people something else. But anyway, that person was given quite a few chances, and they deserved a few chances. But I realised after the fact, basically they had to get sidelined along the way in this production. I'm trying not to name names here. They'll know who they are, but they'll never listen to the show anyway. But there were so many people not talking to them by the end of it that I was having to do all the interim communication, and I kept giving them chance after chance. And finally, after it was all over, I met them sometime later, and I gave them another chance, because I like to get on with people, and I'm quite forgiving of things. And I met this person long after the production had finished, and really they'd been horrific. They tried to hijack it. One of the hijackers I talk about, they tried to hijack the whole film along the way, and partially got success before they were caught. But I gave them yet another chance, and they turned and gave me abuse at that point, quite a lot of abuse. And I realised at that point I'd given this person far too many chances. I should never have given them. I think by this point, I've got to be honest, I'd given them 20 chances. But the rule I set in my head after meeting them that time was always give someone a second chance, but never a third. If someone's constantly undermining you, or constantly causing you problems, or constantly causing other problems for other people, you maybe need to get rid of that person from whatever the project is that you're doing. And that's my point. Always give someone a second chance, but really never a third. And the second thing I've got written down here is some people will let you carry the responsibility and do the work, but then take all the credit later, and you need to watch out for them. And something I found out recently, and it was with that car buying fiasco that I've mentioned in quite a few episodes, because it was horrific. 2022, although a difficult year, is not going particularly well financially or for work, is a far better year for me mindset-wise, because I don't have this hassle going on. But one thing I found along the way is that 1 in 20 people are sociopaths. That means they have no feelings at all for other people, only for themselves, and the upgrade to that would be narcissist. But you need to watch out for these sociopaths. These people will let you do all the work, and the minute it completes, and the minute you've done, you do the extra, whatever, 500 hours on, let's just say it's a film, and these people have done, say, 24 hours, or they've even done 6 hours on a film. These people, like the hijackers I mentioned in the past, may try and take the credit off of you later on. I didn't really have that problem on Fast Romance. It was very difficult for people to say I hadn't been involved. I really had been. But watch out for people who will let you do all the work and then act like they have carried the film or the project across the finish line. These people are trouble, and you need to sideline them, get them out of your life. Remember that thing, you become the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, if one of those 5 people is a sociopath, you're going to be covering for them the whole time. And that's a problem, because it means you're not focusing on what you're meant to be doing. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, but just beware. And my third point here is to never trust that you will be paid on time, and never trust that you will be paid at all. One of the major problems I've had as a freelancer is people telling me that I'm going to be paid at a certain time, and me making plans around that money coming in. Even just now, I'm actually waiting for money, which was promised to me, I think, by the end of last week. It didn't arrive. So if you start making plans based on money that is not actually in your possession, you will be disappointed. This is a freelancer thing. So never trust that you will be paid on time, or indeed ever. And do not set yourself up to the point where when that money doesn't arrive, you are in real financial jeopardy. I've got to be honest, I'm kind of in that situation just now, but that's just because I've had 2.5 years, or 2 and a bit years of COVID, with my work coming down to, I'd say, 20 to 25% of the work that I had previously, and I just don't have any resources left. So every paycheck to me just now makes a big difference. But that's not why I've got this one written down. I've had this written down for months, to be honest. But just be aware of it, and do not spend any money on, there's a thing for, if you're a filmmaker, for example, you want to buy the next shiny new thing. I've talked about it on previous episodes, but if you're going out buying a camera or whatever, or even just some extra batteries that you don't really need, and before you've actually had the money in, you could find yourself in the next week or 2 weeks or month or months not being able to cover your bills because you bought something ahead of the time that you were you had the money in. Does that make sense? I don't know, but never trust that you'll be paid on time, or indeed ever. Number 4 I have is, doing a favour for someone is not a contract for future return of favour, future work, or even of returned respect. Favours are a funny thing. Not that funny. Not funny, haha. A lot of people in production on the stuff that I do not realise that me using one of my favours that benefits their production costs me. Because the next time that I need that favour or a similar thing from this person that's given me this favour, if that production has not paid them, for example, or not treated them well, or left let's say it was a space, left that space in a was for a location or whatever, left it in a bad way, that reflects badly on me. People don't understand that actually, especially in theatre, it runs on favours. I'm borrowing, for example, a prop from someone to run my show, and then that person will borrow something back from me, perhaps for a show of theirs the next season around or whatever, and there's favours going all the time. And if your reputation gets damaged for favours, that's a big problem, because it means you've got nothing to negotiate with that person the next time you need something. But anyway, that's not really the point I'm making. Doing a favour for someone is not a contract for future return of favour, future work, or even of returned respect. This is about giving someone a reduced rate, for example, or giving additional equipment if you're going on to a production. I quite often will add things like mats for free, crash mats, just to make it work, or I'll give them props or whatever. I'll do this. And I used to think that this would help me they would say, oh, this person's really bent over backwards, Carter's really bent over backwards to help us out on this production, so we'll give him a job next time. And then the next job comes along, they say, we must get Carter, he was so good to us last time, he gave us all this stuff, he gave us a reduced rate, did it at so little, whatever, or even just went above and beyond, over-delivered, so we must give him something. That's not in the mindset of an awful lot of people. There are people that work in production that do have that mindset and will remember you, and those people I could count on one hand, and I've been at this 27 years in Scotland. I can count the number of people that I trust will pick up the phone and call me every time on one hand out of 27 years. The rest of them will still go for the cheapest person they can find. And, it's getting ludicrous in Scotland at some points. I know that recently they hired somebody who had literally zero fight directing experience at all, just because they said they wanted to get the experience. And they paid this person an absolute pittance. The person phoned me about it and didn't know what to do. I said, do whatever you want, just don't get yourself into trouble. You make sure you're insured or whatever. But it turned out, as it went along, that the person that was hired him I had done them a favour previously. I had done a short film with them, and I had done it for like 50 quid or something like that, just to help these people out. And the other problem with that 50 quid is that was a funded production. But the funding in Scotland for these little films, the micro budget films, whatever, is a pittance. It's like 15 grand to give these films. So the cast and crew end up doing it for next to nothing in order to kind of lift the production values in the hope that you'll get that future job. I found out that this person was going about still offering a pittance. And of course, that's a thing that happens as well, is people just, sometimes their luck doesn't go with them and maybe they don't have more money next time and you're getting offered the same thing. I turned down a job once for a company I'd worked with a lot because they offered me, I think it was less than half of my daily rate. And this was actually somebody I'd put into that. See, the person that was offering me the job, I'd put them in that position. They'd previously been an accountant. I had strongly advised a company that they could use her as a line producer, that she was great. And then the next time I got the call, it was to offer me a job at half my daily rate. I turned it down. And what happened next? They hired one of my competitors at their full rate. So this is the thing about favours. There is absolutely no guarantee that favour will be returned. So do not get it out of your head now that doing a favour for someone or a production company or whatever, it's just not a contract for future return of favour, for future work, or of returned respect. That's number 4. And number 5 is, and this is a petty one perhaps, but beware of import taxes. And I'm throwing this in here as a warning to all of you, because I once bought a second-hand lens from Japan through eBay, and it arrived, and it was a complete lemon. It was awful. Everything was wrong with it. It had fog in, it had dust inside it, it had, everything it said it didn't. It said it was pristine. It had wrong with it. It had fungus in the inside. It was useless. The cost of me returning that to Japan, I mean, at that point, there wasn't a guaranteed you'll get your money to return it thing, was so much that I just had to throw I think I sold it for a tenner or something, but I bought it for something like 190. It was just a killer. Rather, I probably bought it for something like 120 and had 90 quid import tax, because import tax in the UK I'm talking about here is also charged on the money you pay to have it sent. So you pay for the item, and you pay for the postage for the item, and you pay import tax on the cost of the charges to have it sent and of the value itself. Absolute killer. The same thing happened with a breastplate armor that I got from America. This thing took so long to arrive. I think I paid something like 400 for it, and it was a lot of money. But it was an articulated breastplate and backplate, and I don't spend a lot on armor. I don't use it that much. I was trying to, at that point, buy a little bit of armor here, a little bit of armor there, and build up a suit of armor, which might be of use to me, even for practice or whatever. But this armor, when it finally arrived, months later, the import taxes were so huge, and I mean they were like another half as much again. It was already bloody expensive. So huge that I had to sell the thing just to get myself back to even, because that's honestly what happened. I think I got something like 300 quid for it, and I'd paid something like 550 because I just couldn't afford it. It was just an absolute killer. Anyway, the last thing I'll add on to the top of this, which is nothing to do with import taxes, but is a warning in a similar vein, is never, please, never, ever, ever buy a bloody camera from Argos. Argos is like a catalogue shop in the UK. They've got shops in the high street. You go and look up the catalogue, and they bring you something in the back. And they do not cover returns for cameras, even if the camera does not work. And if I find it, I'll put up the video onto this filmproproductivity.com page for this episode, showing you that I bought a camera. It had a glitch. It was recording, but it was dropping frames. It was black frames appearing in it. Tried to return it. They wouldn't accept it. They don't do returns on cameras. So I was stuck with this lemon, and they were accusing me of cheating or whatever, because I was trying to show them, and they didn't get that it had black frames because it was like tiny things. I'm obviously looking every frame. I noticed a black frame, but somebody in the shop didn't. Anyway, they're standing in front of a sign that's the ceiling high. It's like 15 feet high, that says no quibble returns policy, except, it doesn't say on it, except cameras. They accused me of all sorts and that. I ended up leaving them both the camera and the receipt and basically telling them to fuck off, because I'd fucking had it with them. And I got scammed out of 200 quid by Argos. Yay! So do not buy a camera from Argos. Absolute bastards. Anyway, moving on. Hope you're enjoying this episode. It is completely off the cuff. Anyway, 6, life is not fair, so don't get surprised or upset when you are mistreated. And I suppose this goes along with number 4 about, doing a favour for someone is not a contract for future return of favour, etc. But life's not fair. Don't get surprised or upset when you are mistreated. It happens. I mean, I could look at I'm going to talk about funding in a minute, but like funding in the UK for like government funding, like support grants and stuff like that for film making is an absolute joke. And I used to get worked up about it because I used to spend a lot of time, trying to get it, and I never get it. That's just the way it is. There has been some funding that's come to me in the last year or so because of COVID, but that's completely separate funding from the funding that was getting talked about. I used to get upset about it. It used to bring me down. There's no point. I don't even bother anymore. I'll come on to that in a minute, but like loads of things are going to happen to you that are unfair. shall we say. And my point with this, I'm gonna give a few examples because I must remember this in the episode of how I've learned it the hard way. The thing is, you need to at least try or make a serious attempt to letting them go. We're all human. It's not easy, but letting these things go are what will allow you to move ahead, or at least build, I don't know, walls to keep them in control in your head rather than letting them constantly bring you down. One of the biggest things that happened to me, which is why this is a lesson I'm talking about here, was I was assistant director at the Citizens Theatre. Now, I wasn't on a full-time contract, don't get me wrong. I think I'd done 2 or 3 shows, can't remember, 2 or 3 shows. It was nearly 20 years ago, and the opportunity came up for a full-time position. I'm like, fantastic, at last I get, this is probably where I want to go. The Cits was definitely where I wanted to be. It was my dream job, literally was my dream job. And the position came up. And what did the position say? Must be from an ethnic background. And with the best will in the world, being a Scottish white man in Scotland does not make me part of a minority. And the end result was I couldn't even apply for my own job. I really couldn't apply for my own job. And I'd earned that position, by the way. I had worked my way to get that, and I was loving the being involved in that. And it was exactly where I needed to be in a career path as well. Everything about it was what I loved. And I couldn't even apply. And that's something that carried with me for a long, long time. I still carry it now. As I say, I've walled it in. And I kind of got annoyed at myself because the girl that got the job, they phoned me and said, she doesn't know what she's doing. Of course she doesn't know what she's doing. But anyway, I had put the time in. She had just been thrown into it. And they said, can you have a chat with her and help her? And I actually feel like an idiot now that I did it, but I did it because I'm a good person. I went in and I helped her, and I showed her the ropes for, I think it was panto or something that she was doing. And that was that. But I kind of carried that with me as well, as not only could I not apply for my own job, but the girl that got it, who seemed nice enough, but she was already looking at the next, she was already trying to get the next job. Here's the thing for her, it was something like 24 grand they got sponsored from, I think it was Channel 4 the money came from, to get somebody from a minority to have this role as assistant director. But they didn't give her 24 grand. They kept 12 grand themselves, and they only paid her 12 grand. So she wasn't making a lot of money. So she was already thinking, right, what else? What other funds and stuff can I access? But anyway, that was that, and good luck to her. But it left me in this very, very down for a very, very long time. And like the position I was in with funding, like constantly getting knocked back and constantly not being eligible and basically being told no, if you even got that far, is something that really brought me down. And I say over time, over these heavy knocks that I got, I've learned that I can't let these things weigh me down. It is like going through your life and career with a ball and chain around your leg. Another example I'd give is that I was stopped by the cops and accused of using my mobile phone whilst driving, where I absolutely bloody wasn't. I was touching my ear or scratching my ear or something as I drove by them. I saw them. I was driving by a junction, saw them ahead of me, drove by them. Next thing I know, they're chasing me down. Next thing I'm pulling over. Next thing they're saying I was using a mobile phone, and they both saw me. And I'm like, no, you didn't, because I didn't do it. And I had to go to court twice over that, which I've talked about in the past. I won't go into it again. But I lost a job. I lost case histories with Jason Isaacs as a result, because I only had two jobs in the months that came up. And it was one in 1 month, one in another, and they were both case histories. And and this is sod's bloody law. This is where you think the world is against you. This is where mental health comes into it, and you think, no, there's something's going against me here that is trying to keep me back, and your mind starts to really believe it. And I have at points in my career thoughts like this is a game, that I am the center of a game, like what do you call it, the Truman Show situation. But like that was horrific experience. The worst thing about it actually was not those 2 days that I lost, was the 10 or 11 or 12 months in between them stopping me and me getting there. This happened as I was finishing my feature film Fast Romance really, really brought me down. Made me absolutely miserable. Made me rage. I was raging for those months. I was furious constantly underneath. And that was because 2 cops had to tick a box and say they'd caught someone, for driving whilst using a mobile phone. They obviously had some sort of, quota to meet. And since that point, I've never trusted the police. Not once. I try to avoid them. If a police car comes behind me, I'll pull over. I'll turn into a street. Really, that's something that I can't deal with particularly well. But in my day-to-day life, that's in another box in my head, walled up, so that it doesn't interfere. Again, we're talking about here, just to remind you, life is not fair, so don't get surprised or upset when you're mistreated. So there's just a few examples of things that have happened to me, and a lot of things have happened to me. If you've listened to my bullying episode, it's a big episode, it's like 50 minutes long, but it's a pretty good one, I think. And you'll hear quite a few things that have happened to me along the way, and it really, when I look back at my life and these opportunities, I've had some great opportunities, and I've had some absolute, stinking things happen to me simultaneously. But there's worse things happening in the world than not getting funding for a film. I know that. But if you're a creative person working in an artistic world and trying to get your stuff done, trying to make a mark, trying to help other people do their best, this stuff makes a big impact. But anyway, that's enough on that. I've actually, by the way, this is a re-record. I recorded this before, and it was all right. It was actually all right. But I'm dropping this new bit into this episode because I was thinking about it afterwards. I think I forgot to give any clear examples of why this was something I learned the hard way. But I've learned the hard way for sure that life isn't fair. Yeah, it's got double standards. There's a whole lot of things. Things will go well for other people for whatever reason that you can't control. Just let it go. Or if you can't let it go, wall it up and move on. And talking about moving on, number 7, never trust the press. An example I'd give with this is that, right, Fast Romance, again, the film, right? When we were trying to raise money for that and trying to get it done, the press were all over us, loved this, help support this, these local filmmakers trying to get stuff done and all that sort of thing. The fucking minute we asked people to come and see the film in cinemas and pay money, they turned against us. And they were like, oh, these people want money for films that they made for next to nothing. How dare they? It was like, what the hell? And they absolutely tore us apart in the reviews. The film's absolutely fine. I'm watching films all the time that are truly garbage. I'd say out of the last 5 films I've watched that are big budget, I mean, a lot of them, absolutely terrible. I rarely turn films off halfway through, but 2 films I've tried to watch recently, I turned off halfway through. Just couldn't make it through them. Absolutely atrocious. What were they again? That's it. That's how forgettable they were. That bad, I couldn't get through it. But let me just think. Let me pause it for a second. Right, it got out of my mind so much that I had to look up what it was. It was The Matrix Revolutions. Hold on, I need to look it up again. Even now, I can't remember it. The Matrix Resurrections. Gave up. At 40 minutes to go. Gave up. Absolute garbage. Anyway, never trust the press was my point. If you're doing a low-budget project, I'm talking to low-budget people. I know there's people listening to this at a big budget, but if you're doing a project, and if you've got a big budget, you can protect yourself to some extent from these sort of people, but you'll find you'll get a lot of support for lower-end things, but they could turn on you at any moment for any reason. You are just a source of information for them. They do not care about you. Do not trust the press. If I go in to make something else in the future, I'll either do it potentially not even in my real name, but like in a completely made up name, and I'll go as a producer, and I'll just never put my own name on any of the stuff. That's how strongly I feel about it, and it's a problem because trying to get stuff done with not a lot of money is difficult. But I just do not want to be getting into all of that. I'll find another way of promoting it. But yeah, that's my point. Don't trust the press; they'll turn against you. Number 8, seeking funding from government agencies is a waste of time and money. Not for everyone, possibly, but for me, it certainly has been. What I found, because I used to apply quite a lot, I used to really, really try. I mean, a really massive amount of effort was put into applications and stuff. But a few things happened. One was we never got any money. In fact, I've mentioned this a few times on the show. I went into a meeting after I'd made Fast Romance, and Robbie Allen was the name of the chap that was the film officer for Film Scotland or Scottish Screen or whatever they were known at that time, and he said to me, "We will never fund you." This actually happened. I said, what chance have I got for development money? Because I had a few ideas I wanted to kind of get approved. I'd made a film, we'd got it into cinemas, we'd won the BAFTA Scotland gave us the Cineworld Audience Award, which is the kind of audience voted best film. So we won that, and I went into this meeting expecting, maybe if I can just get like $2 or $3 grand, I can take a couple of months off and develop some stuff, something. And he said, "We will never fund you." Of course, my answer to that was, "Why not?" And he explained that basically they've got a finite pot of money, which I think was something like 6 pots of £90,000, which they gave to 6 different companies or producers. And basically the reason they couldn't give me money is because these people were already going to get given it. There's no way I could break that. And they wanted to, in my mind, they effectively wanted to keep the status quo. They didn't want anyone new coming up. There was no option at that point to bring someone else up. They could have taken one of those pots of 90 grand, split it into, however many 3 grand pots and given it out to a bunch of filmmakers to lift them up. That might not have been the best thing to do. Maybe larger pots, giving it to different filmmakers that were actually getting somewhere, because a lot of filmmakers talk about doing it but don't actually get it done. Anyway, I proved myself, did loads of applications and never got anywhere. And really what has started happening is they said, "Don't put in an application to us unless you've spoken to one of our film officers." But what the film officers were doing was saying, "Don't apply. Don't even bother applying." And therefore that probably made their figures look good, because that would mean that the people who didn't apply were off the records, as it were. And you're talking about a 35, 45 page document you're having to do with every project that you put in. So they really make it difficult. You're talking, a month or 6 weeks of your time just on the application. And then you're not going to get it anyway. So, and they're discouraging you from putting in the application because it wouldn't look good for them to turn down loads of them, if this makes sense. And what I realise is, if I just didn't put in the 4 weeks or 6 weeks effort into the application, I could just put together a film for little or no money, or go and earn some money and get it done myself. This is when I'm learning. I'm not making money from these films. Short films do not make money. They do not make money. Do not even start to tell me they do. Rare occasions, a little bit of money will come back from a short film, but realistically, they don't make money. If you want to make money, shoot some dog videos or something like that and chuck them on one of these social platforms, YouTube or whatever, and try and make some money back that way. Don't put a massive amount of effort into a short film and put it on, because less people will care about the film you've put together with time and effort and your own money and all of the creativity that's come to that from all the people around you. Less people will care about that than just a picture of a dog running and falling over or jumping on a trampoline or something like that. I'm telling you. Anyway, that's not my point. That's just another point. But seeking funding from government agencies is a waste of time and energy. And one of the best things that happened to me was I was in Cannes and I met, I think Robbie Allen was there, but it was Leslie Finley's another chap, nice guy. And I think it was Leslie. I said, "Well, I found the best way to make films is just not to apply at all." And I said it while he was standing there, but there was other people around. He's like, no, that's not the best way to do it. And I think I shouldn't have said that, but it was quite kind of good to see that, I touched a nerve there. But then it was because genuinely that's the experience that I had. Anyway, moving on, number 9, never work with assholes if you can avoid it. You can always choose to walk away, and you should never be afraid to walk away. And yeah, working with assholes, I wanted to do an episode on this, but it's really just a point I think I need to make. I don't think there was an episode in it. I've worked with a lot of assholes along the way, and there's a seesaw I've got with assholes, right? There's like pain in the ass at one side and brilliant on the other. And you'll get a lot of assholes will be brilliant. So you're constantly going, but they're a pain in the ass, but they're brilliant, so I'll let them away with that. There's a whole load of assholes who are terrible, and they're easy to just get rid of. Move them, sideline them, remove them from your production. It's difficult in a short film when there's not a lot of people getting paid. I'm talking about short films and stuff. I know other people listen to this, but it's difficult to get rid of some people if you're not paying them very much, because you're stuck with what you've got to an extent, and someone needs to do it. And even a badly done work, or work done by an asshole who's creating problems for you, might even be better than not having them there at all. But really try and avoid working with them in the first instance. And as I said a second ago, you can usually always walk away unless it's your project. But if you're on a project and you're surrounded by assholes, just leave. Just get out of it. Try to find a way out. Usually these days, I can tell if a project's going to be a nightmare before it even starts. And I'm not talking about low budget shenanigans and difficulties of features and stuff like that. I'm not talking about this film Mercy Falls that I'm on, for example. That's actually done to a high standard. You know, a lot of people working hard and a lot of great people on it. I'm talking about largely short films, and I can tell before I even get there on the day that something's going to be horrific if their communication's been bad, if they don't know what they're doing, or if they're just kind of rude. And that's another thing I notice, actually. So basically, sorry, to end that point, I will leave a production before it starts if I think it's going to be too horrific for me. But I have unfortunately had the experience fairly recently of working on a project with someone who was just such an asshole that I had to remove myself from it, and I did. It's so difficult that I thought it was a joke, that he was, you know, acting so bizarrely as a joke, but it turns out he was serious, and I removed myself from that one. But really, do everything you can to avoid working with assholes, because it's just going to make you miserable. And when they're behaving badly towards you, they're probably behaving badly towards other people. So when the project completes, only when you have distanced yourself from someone will people start to tell you the truth about how they feel about someone who's difficult or who is an arsehole. And when I ended working with this one person, everybody in their dug came out of the woodwork to say that they don't work with them because they're so horrible to people. And respect being one of my key, values, which I've come up with in my best year yet strategy, I now ensure that if someone's difficult, if someone's bullying someone else, I will try and step in and ease the situation, or, you know, stop that problem from happening. So never work with assholes if you can avoid it. Number 10, don't trust, this is the final one, don't trust that folk that you think are intelligent actually are intelligent. The world is filled with idiots, okay? It's filled with them. People will do things so off-kilter, so bizarre that you'll be left dumbfounded, that's the word. There's a few instances of things that I've done causing problems like this, and I don't want to name the people, but I'll give an example of one. I once made a film, massive amount of effort in it, massive amount of my own money. Not massive, not talking like 40 grand or something like that. I'm talking like 2,500 out my own pocket in this film. And somebody who played a bit part in it hassled me every day. How are you getting on with the film? How are you getting on with the film? How are you getting on with the film? Can I see it? Can I see it? Can I see it? Can I see it? And eventually, and they're intelligent, and I like them, and I still speak to them now, and I didn't fall out with them over this. I just was like, oh my God, this person's an imbecile. I finally said, right, here you go, you can watch the film. The film had not been released. It wasn't anywhere. It'd been completed, and I sent them a link to watch it. And I got a call from my mate Alistair, who was also involved in it, at like 2 a.m. in the morning, saying, have you seen this? And what had happened is the guy had sent the film to had ripped the film and uploaded it onto his own YouTube page. And put it out on social media saying, I'm in this film. And honestly, he had been given it with these strict instructions not to share it, not to do anything like that. And this happened. He did that. It absolutely happened. And he took it down right away when he realised he'd made a mistake and stuff. But you cannot assume that people are intelligent or experienced or know what is right from wrong. Really lay it out. Lay it out, even if you feel like you're talking down to someone. For example, if I'm sharing something now, I will say, you must not share this. Even though I know their experience, even if I know they've 50 years experience, I will say, do not do this, because this is why. And I'll say to them, I know that you know this, but you must understand that I must say this to you in order to protect myself. So don't trust that folk you think are intelligent actually are. The world is filled with idiots. And that is the final one. Shall I do a recap? Oh, hang the expense. Number 1, always give someone a second chance, but never a third. Number 2, some people will let you carry the responsibility and do the work, but take credit later. Remember to watch out for them, because 1 in 20 people are sociopaths. And if you need to know what a sociopath is, look it up. They just do not care about other people. You might think they might have learned, they might have acted like they care. They might have learned things that make them look like they care. They don't care. They really don't. They don't get it. They're just going through a sequence of things. Anyway, number 3, never trust that you will be paid on time or ever. Number 4, doing a favour for someone is not a contract for future return of favour, future work, or even of returned respect. Number 5, beware of import taxes, and a wee addendum to that, never buy a camera from Argos. Number 6, life is not fair, so don't get surprised or upset when you are mistreated. Number 7, never trust the press. Number 8, seeking funding from government agencies is a waste of time and energy. Number 9, never work with assholes if you can avoid it. You can always choose to walk away and never be afraid to walk away. And finally, number 10, don't trust that folk that you think are intelligent actually are, because the world is filled with idiots. And these genuinely are things that I've learned the hard way, so please take them seriously. I know it's a bit of a joke, because they might head off a problem for you before you step right into it. And do you have anything that you've learned the hard way that you'd like to share with me? You can leave a voicemail message via the website, filmproproductivity.com/contact. Please use that. It's there. It does. I think it still works. I better check that. Or you can grab me on Twitter at FilmProProdPod, or on Facebook, where I'd encourage you to go and check out the Facebook thing. I'm trying to get people to use that a bit more, but that's at Film Pro Productivity. You'll find it there. And if you feel up for it too, while you're on there, please leave a review and like and share the page, because I need your help to help me find more listeners. So, as I said at the start of this episode, it marks the beginning of a short kind of 4-week year where I'm tying up a few loose ends, and creating an initial 9 episodes of this podcast is part of these 4 weeks. And with these new shows, I have 2 specific aims as well. The first is to bring the show up to episode 100, and the second aim is to try a new shorter format along the way. And I've tried several times to shorten the length of these episodes without much success, I have to say, but it's something I really need to make it work. With that in mind, I'm going to be releasing mostly regular length episodes this season until and including episode 100, but after that, and after receiving feedback from you on a few test episodes, which are also going out at the same time, I will either stop creating new shows altogether and call it a day at episode 100, or I will proceed initially with another 50 in a new shorter format, leaving the possibility for the occasional interview show or longer format special. And season 7 will continue next week with a fairly standard show called Creativity on Demand, which is all about the difficulties of having to come up with creative work and solutions on a deadline, and that's basically it. And yeah, come up with creative work and solutions on a deadline. That's pretty much it. And in the following week, I'll have 2 trial episodes in the new minisode format. One's called Fast, Cheap, Good, and that'll be released at 7 p.m. GMT on the Sunday. And the next one's called Batching, and that'll be released at the same time, 7 p.m. on the Wednesday. I'll be looking for feedback on those ones, so please let me know how you feel about them. And after that, we will have another standard show, which is called Anger, Regret, and Jealousy. But the following week again, I will release 2 more minisodes on the Sunday and the Wednesday. One is called Focus on 3 Things, and the other is Opening and Closing Doors. I'll end the season, though, with episode 99, To-Do Lists, and the final week will be show number 100, 10 Productivity Superpowers. Stephen Covey famously said that to achieve goals you've never achieved before, you need to start doing things you've never done before. And that's why I'm trying new things. Change is necessary, and I'm hoping that the new format that I'm going to trial here will allow this show to continue. It's partly about time. I have very, very little of it, and a short single point format show will give me a lot of that time back, and it's partly just about mixing things up. But I'll end today with some words from Al Franken, who said, "Mistakes are part of being human. Appreciate your mistakes for what they are. Precious life lessons can only be learned the hard way, unless it's a fatal mistake, which at least others can learn from. Now take control of your own destiny. Keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success." The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Ehimitsu. View the show notes for this episode on the official website, only there, the full show notes, filmproproductivity.com. Follow my personal account on Twitter and Instagram at Fight Director if you like, or follow the show on Twitter at FilmProProdPod or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. And please, folks, continue to support the show by subscribing. Do subscribe on the app you're listening to on and spreading the word. And why not just, while you're at it, leave me an awesome review. See you later.